Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we are talking about the one and only Turbo coin. Ladies and gentlemen, I am super excited to talk about Turbo. It is going to be a Saturday when this video does come out. So, do not expect too much volatility in the markets because, Saturday usually is going to be the slowest day. Sometimes very rarely, we have, had decent moves. Bitcoin may have moved a couple thousand, but that is extremely rare. And most of the time, it's just sideways movement of a couple $100 going up and down for something like Bitcoin, which we know, going up a couple $100 or going down a couple $100 is nothing for something like Bitcoin, right? So, you know what? I don't expect any big moves in general to be happening on Saturday, but that still doesn't mean we can't be talking about what I think generally is going to happen with Turbo. Now, based off what I personally see, is I believe this coin will have a little bit of a sell off. We did, just literally pump a large amount. Even if we just take a rough estimate, we can see that, Monday, somewhere here on Monday, we're up currently 103%, and at one point we're up 153%. So crazy gains. We can see the last few days, the daily candles, multiple rejections. If we go to something like the 4 hour, we can see that we do have one wick over here and one big 4 hour wick here. And we actually keep breaking it down to smaller time frames. We can see that we actually do start entering multiple order blocks, right? If we're on a 45-minute, more or less we enter here, and then from this one, we enter here, and then from here we actually enter even another one down here, right? When we go back to the hourly, we can see that this hourly candle goes perfectly into this. So, we are just creating lower and lower highs. We are also technically creating higher and higher lows, right? Even if we go to something like the 4 hour, we are printing it, right? We are printing higher and higher lows. So we are coming to a stalemate, but I do think that we will see some kind of sell off. Okay, maybe not right away when this video comes out because we are still on the nice green weekly candle, but I do think there will be some type of pullback. Generally speaking, retesting these big zones over here of roughly 0.0033 area, right? I do think overall that's going to probably be your best buying opportunity when we do retest this, right? I don't really see this coming back down to these levels, breaking below. In fact, that would be pretty worrying, right? That would make me worry a decent amount. So I do think roughly around this green box, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little lower, we will be closing, which then eventually means we will be pumping up. Now, there is no, new news regarding Turbo itself, but we will be also checking out the basics. We can see that even on the Friday to Saturday transition, we're still at 170 million volume. So volume is still super high. 310 million market cap, which is what we love to see. We are 150th in the world. The other time we were just roughly almost at 300th. We're like 280 something. And we can see we just climbed up the ranks. We can also see, ladies and gentlemen, right, the holders were 53,316. Then we went down 100. We were slowly climbing up, and then look at the holders, the bandwagon. Look at the bandwagon for Turbo when we just shot up. You see, some people left the project when things were down. Some people thought this project is done for. Some people did join the train, right? Overall, Turbo's trend has been up, but we can see, right? The moment Turbo skyrockets, all of a sudden now everybody wants to get on board, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if we do have a little bit of a red week next week and we do pull back a decent amount, right? I wouldn't be surprised if some of these people leave, just because they're emotional traders and very emotional when it comes to the market, right? I would not be surprised if the growth slows down or if our numbers start retracing. But we can see, right, we explode and bandwagon just like that. So I'm telling you, right, when altcoin season will be here, and I'm not just talking about Turbo, I'm talking about, the whole world's talking about crypto because all these coins have pumped a tremendous amount. I will not be surprised if Turbo is pumping, or sorry, growing in thousands of holders, new holders each day during altcoin season. All right, I would not be surprised. You have to remember, overall crypto moves in bursts. Okay, so when things start pumping, they usually pump for those couple of days, those few weeks, and then things slow down, sideways movement, retracement, blah blah blah. Same thing with followers. Same thing with holders. It's always just in bursts. So that's just the name of the game, right? People get FOMO. People see, oh my God, this coin did this, that. The world's talking about crypto. Let me join in. And that's just, human nature practically, right? That is just human nature. But look, ladies and gentlemen, I am super, super high on this, coin. Ultimately, I do believe Turbo will probably be hitting that 10 billion market cap. Yes, we could be hitting higher, but me, I like to do more realistic, conservative prices, which yes, I do believe 10 billion is conservative for this coin. I know some people are calling for $1, which I believe we calculated this before, be roughly 70, 80 billion market cap, which I personally do not believe it would happen. Maybe in a world where we get 16 trillion market cap globally for crypto, maybe, but I don't really like being a full moon boy. Something like even Turbo's recent price, right? You know, I expected this. Did I expect it to happen within like 2 or 3 days? No, not necessarily, right? Not necessarily. But was it a pleasant surprise? Absolutely. Because anything, right? All the steps we needed to do, which was one, go up to here, have a little bit of a sell off, which, technically we did sell off this order block, right? We sold off the order block, right, for 2 3 hours, and then we instantly just climbed up, right? We just did what we have to do in terms of cycle. It was very, very pleasant to see Turbo just kind of speed up, right? But if I had these kind of expectations, just from day one, where I expect Turbo to always pump a large amount, or I expect Turbo to have these kind of pumps within a 2 day span, I'm going to be disappointed most of the times. And honestly, it's not realistic or like a sustainable mindset. It's really, really not, right? When things do pump a lot, way more than you expect, that's when you can readjust and say, okay, what is next for this coin? Hey, like, what is next for this coin? Obviously, for us, it is just reclaiming territory. But if Turbo was, pumping higher and higher, which eventually it will, right? It will start getting to an unknown zone, right? We'll have to obviously be looking at Turbo. We'll obviously have to be looking at Bitcoin dominance, which Bitcoin dominance is dropping a little bit over the last few days. It is struggling to kind of, hold. It's going between roughly 64.20% and pretty much 64.60%, which is, not a big drop, but it is kind of consolidating, right? It is clearly consolidating, going sideways. We do want this just to continue moving up because we do want to ultimately get to where we have to get to, which is going to be roughly 71% before we have a big, big sell off, which is then, considered altcoin season, right? So look, um, you know, once we do get into unknown territory, ladies and gentlemen, that is when, we could readjust our plan, right? If Turbo just pumps, a couple percent each day, slowly, fundamentally, it is what it is. But if Turbo all of a sudden you know, catches off guard and pumps, back to back days, let's say has back to back 70% days, or even a whole week, it just pumped 200%. I mean, no one's complaining. And at that point, we readjust and say, okay, what is the game plan, right? So that is the thing, people, right? I don't like to be full moon boy. A dollar, or sorry, one, dollar expectation is very, very unrealistic for this coin. And, you may have 20x in front of you. You may have 50x in front of you. You may have, 10x, 5x, depending on where you get in. Most likely if you're watching now, you won't be getting a 5x, right? But you might have like a 50x in front of you. But since you thought this coin's going to do 150x, right? I'm not saying just the actual calculations, you know, then you're going to be disappointed. You're not getting the 50x in the hindsight. You're going to be like, oh, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? That is always the story. So that is why, you know, I don't set these unrealistic expectations. Roughly a 30x from here would be my ideal goal. And I think that's very, very plausible. I think that is going to happen, right? I do believe we are going to, like I said, become one of the biggest and best meme coins. If we quickly look, which is something we're going to talk about more next video, right? If we go to the rankings, we go to something like meme coins, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eight, nine, 10. 10 is SPX, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we're already 14th. We're only 4 away from hitting top 10, right? Obviously, we want to, when we peak and all the other coins peak too, we want to be top 10, during the altcoin season. But look, I mean, we were like mid to far 20s. Like we're almost like 30th meme coin, and now we're all of a sudden 14th. So, you know, very, very good times ahead. I do believe, Turbo will be the coin, the number one meme coin in terms of gains, unless you obviously buy a coin like at 10,000 market cap and it hits like 10 million. Then but I mean in general, from the big boys, from the coins that are relevant, for the coins that will stay, Turbo is going to be my number one winner, and I've been thinking and believing that since day one. Now I will say though, ladies and gentlemen, I am currently in a sell at the moment, right? I am currently in a sell, not a very big position, but I said, hey, if I truly, believe in my analysis, even though it is a Saturday, so I'm not risking too much, I practically did something like this. Now, if you want to follow it, you are technically trading against the trend, but there's, certain context. I'm playing it tight. I didn't put too much money into it, but I said, hey, you know what? If this is really going to be the reversal, right? We are truly, creating lower and lower highs. And yes, even though we are creating higher and higher lows, which is technically why this trade's kind of like a little bit risky, right? You don't have the full confirmation. Then it's like, hey, I'm going to make 4 times my money here. And then I'm going to cash out for, the futures. So if I put in $100, right, that $100 turns into $400. And then I'm going to put that $400 into buying actual turbo around this price, right? It's that simple. But of course, when you do leverage trade, you are always, you are technically taking risk, because once the price kind of goes up here, you get wrecked. So, I'm just doing this for fun. Like I said, I do not have a lot of money in this trade. So if you do copy it and we end up getting wrecked, you know, do not blame me. I literally warned you. But I think there's a good probability that, like I said, we will see some type of reversal, just because, it's always healthy to see some kind of correction. And especially that, I see Bitcoin, kind of selling off slowly. And I would not be surprised if Bitcoin over the next couple of days, coming into next week, would go back down to roughly, this low over here of 91,790, or even going back down to like 90K. So yeah, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy it, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.